Welcome to America's most livable city. Please ignore the invisibles with me. See, Pittsburgh, we built its economy, but we still lead the nation in black poverty. Welcome to America's most livable city. Just ignore the invisibles with me and state your business, cause here, the place you live in depends on your race and privilege.
Well, hello, everyone. It is Tuesday at 2, and welcome to What Black Pittsburgh Needs to Know. I am your facilitator, Cheryl Hall-Russell, and joined as usual by my colleagues, Jasiri X. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay.
Absolutely.
Great. And Dr. Jamil Bey of UrbanKind, and of course, Jasiri is with One Hood Media. You guys know, usually every week we've got guests, where every other week we have guests, but y'all, it's been so much going on over this last month. We just decided for the three of us to just come on because we had a whole lot to talk about. So this week is just current events, and we're just going to mix it up on a lot of things that we know you all have been talking about, and we're going to talk about them here. So leading the list here lately, I know at least in my timeline, has been Pittsburgh Public Schools. For those of you who don't know and who don't have kids in the system or have been reading about it, school system should have opened on August. What was it? The 25th was the initial date.
25th was the initial
right.
date.
And
so tomorrow was the first day.
Tomorrow was it, and everybody was rolling with that. And then suddenly there's an announcement that it was being pushed out 2 weeks. From what we heard, the parents didn't know. I know I talked to teachers who had no idea it was being pushed out. And I even talked to a school board member who seemed not to know what was happening. So that blew up, big old mess. There was conversation about what to do. And then it was suddenly, there was a switch again back to September 3rd, and nobody seemed to know that was happening until they got notifications. So I know we're having school bus driver issues. What is up with the communication with Pittsburgh Public? I've never seen a worse communicating organization.
Yeah, I think that's part of the issue, right? Even to start the school on September 3rd, which is a Friday, and then we're going into like a 3-day weekend, is also weird to me as to why. But, and this is kind of going off of, when COVID-19 shut everything down. It didn't seem like the schools, particularly PPS, was necessarily prepared for what happened. There was a lot of kind of stumbles and starts. But, particularly we're thinking like, because people had been home, people had been preparing for this moment. What else do you have to work on except for understanding that this is a big lift? We're in an unprecedented time. We're in a pandemic. We're getting conflicting information from the CDC. But we were thinking, if anything, you could decide like what the date would be. And, you could function on that in terms of making sure all that was set. So to have these kind of stops and starts and different dates, and even a lack of communication from the superintendent to actual teachers, to parents, and a lot of folks expressed that, to him, a lot of folks, a lot of this is falling on him. And so this is kind of for him, as somebody who just got his contract renewed, it's not really a great start in terms of like how he's functioning. He's somebody that has been criticized in the past for various reasons. So it definitely is looking like he's not putting his best foot forward, nor is this administration.
And communication is not his thing. So, the district does a lot of really beautiful pamphlets and releases, but when he has to come out as a leader and talk, man, I was watching that school board meeting the other day. My man is all but holding something in front of him as he's reading it like this. And I'm like, people need to know you. We need to connect to you and understand. You're more willing to give somebody a break if you feel their sincerity. And he's so closed off that it's hard to read him.
Particularly Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has this theory. If you're not from Pittsburgh, which I'm not, like Pittsburgh, kind of, you got to come, and there's kind of like a hazing period. But a lot of times Pittsburgh is a kind of a blue collar, down to earth place, and they want to know, like, if you real, what I'm saying, which I can appreciate, what I'm saying. Yeah. And so folks want to see you, they want to feel you, they want to shake your hand. And for me, I know particularly once people saw me, once people, was able to talk to me, then I was embraced, you know what I'm saying? But I think if your approach is kind of a standoffish approach, or, you don't want to really get down with the folks, then folks are gonna have some issues with that. So somebody put in the comments they were going to put some kids on Port Authority buses and had to rethink that decision. Again, as a parent of a PPS student, I didn't know that. I didn't know that was one of the plans
either.
They
had gone down to the 11-year-olds to put them on a bus.
And on a Port Authority bus.
On a Port Authority bus, some of them having to do Yeah, they were putting 11-year because there was just a whole list of folks with 11-year-old children on my Facebook going, whoa, wait a minute.
Whoa.
This ain't New York City. Our kids are not used to just jumping on buses at 8.
As you're trying to solve a problem, you have an executive decision to make. And there are all of these confounding variables. We have a driver shortage, there's a bus shortage, for whatever. And here are some options. Okay, there is a public transportation system. How do we use that? What does that look like? What do parents feel like about that? That's why the communication part is key. If you come to us and say, look, we're going to move this to the middle of September because these are the outstanding issues and these are tough. And I know there's not an easy decision. Even if you're like, damn it, my plan was to do this. I need okay, at least I understand how we got there. And this is just an executive leadership training thing. How do you communicate tough decisions? It's not an easy, this is a tough one. But damn it, learn how to make tough decisions and convince people to win. That's the part of it that, come on, bro.
Listen, I feel for him, in terms of that. I remember when I was at the Hill House and everybody was like, what's going on with the grocery store? And I remember I was here like 2 months and I had to walk into a room with 100 people and say, we about to close this down for a minute because we don't know where we are and we need to stop for a minute. But what I did was I walked in, I didn't have a script, and I told them what was happening. And I remember somebody saying, well, at least we know now. We know what was going on. We appreciate you coming in the room and being bold enough to tell us what you didn't know and what you were going to do about it. And sometimes that's all you need. People will give you a lot if you're direct. And if there's some curiosity about what's happening with the shortage around the buses, this is a national issue. So, I'm not even blaming the district for that. There are buses, there are bus drivers. Pay is an issue. People with CLD licenses are getting paid more working for private companies who are now doing all these deliveries. So they got better opportunities. So there's got to be some discussion about pay, equity in that position. And so nationally it's a struggle, but
I think what Dr. Bey was saying is like, when you bring the community into the process, and to say like, hey, community, this is what's happening. Even like, hey, we're looking for bus drivers. If you know anybody, this is the situation. But I think when you wait to the last minute and then kind of throw it out there, like this is what we have to do. That's kind of I think that's the issue and the problem that people have. And I think, it goes back to like Dr. Bey said, it's like, what type of leadership are you displaying? Are you displaying this kind of like, my way or the highway type of thing? Or are you actually bringing folks in, community, teachers, school board members into a process? And I think when you do that, then folks tend to be more on your side and folks tend to be more supportive because it's like, okay, we're all in this together. He's included me in the process and how I feel. And I think that didn't happen in this scenario. And hopefully it's a learning experience. And hopefully, the brother Dan, as we go forward, says, because I think he said, he admitted that, he apologized for how the information. So, and the hope is as we move forward that he would be better and to say like, yo, there's community groups and organizations that are willing to help. Particularly if we're invited
here and talked about it. If we knew there was a bus issue, we would have said, look, y'all, they're jammed up. Here's the number to call. Here's what the pay is. Here's the training that's needed. We would have definitely, I just think he doesn't understand the willingness of the support across the community if he would just open himself up to it. And something is fearful. That's a fearful leader who is unable to open up like that. And that's damaging. So I don't know. I didn't get on here just to drag this dude, but is he learning? I don't know, Dr. Bey, is he learning?
I can't comment on that, but I just on executive leadership, you're forced to make some tough decisions, but it's always easier when I need the support of those people who are impacted to explain my process. Let me include you. This is the tough decision that we have to make. Here are the variables. Here's what I'm worried about. And even if I don't agree with the decision that you made as the leader of that, right? I don't know how to run a damn school district. I'm not saying that I do. Like, yeah, that's way bigger than anything I want to do. But at the same time, let me hear how you're thinking, because the decisions you make impact my community. Let's talk through that. And there may be some things from folks who have some ideas to contribute. That's
true. And I think just to echo what Dr. Bey saying, particularly like with technology now, I mean, you could get on one of these. I mean, you could kind of get on one of these and have a town hall and just kind of open it up to the community and the folks to kind of even participate. So even how technology is you can talk because sometimes, and I don't know, he might feel that the press maybe is against him or the media is against him. Nowadays, you can come and you could talk directly to the people and the community, take questions, and kind of more so bring us into the process. And like you said, Dr. Russell, I think people would appreciate that. Like, even if you don't agree, it's like he came to us, he said what he said, he took questions, he described like, okay, no, this is actually what I'm thinking. And I think those are some things that that hopefully we would be willing to see going forward. I know, we've had a school board member on here, and we've had a school board member pull out of this conversation. We're a platform that's trying to, get information out into our community here in Pittsburgh. We're not, so we would be willing to too, if the brother wanted to come have a conversation, to also have a conversation with him and allow our audience to participate in that process as well.
So I think
his success is our children's success.
100%.
Right. And maybe One Hood should open up a educators channel. Let's talk about public education. Let's have a whole series on that. Let's provide a space so that we can democratize that. Like we said, you have the platform, the space, and you got take it to the people right now. I mean, it's so politicized, and there are folks in the chat talking about, so how much of this is Harrisburg and their willingness to allow school districts to fail.
Yeah. Well, and then we had even dealing with the teachers union, which is a whole nother conversation. They ratified their contract today as well and supported this third opening. Not only are they starting on the 3rd, Monday they're off, and Tuesday is Rosh Hashanah. So, I mean, there's this whole kind of, what about this piece a day that y'all gonna get? What is the point at this point? It's just things like that maybe with some community conversations.
And it is interesting. It's interesting that, Dr. Russell, to see what's happening with Pittsburgh Public Schools, and at the same time now what's happening with the Schuman Detention Center. And it's almost like, here are these, it puts all like our youth in peril again. This is another situation where if you have a young person that maybe got caught up in something, and Schuman is a juvenile detention center. I guess they were decertified by the state. It's looking like they're closing. Now it's talking about, we were talking earlier, Dr. Bey said some folks are being sent to Ohio. They're talking about maybe some folks getting sent to the county jail, which to me is I definitely would not want to see that. Right. Yeah. And so it's like, how are we, dealing with our young people? And I say that to say, we did a documentary that's coming out about kind of the future of education with the organization called Allies for Children. And we were kind of asking primarily Black youth directly about, like, how did they see this last year and what are some of the things that they need? And it was really a piece where it seemed that like administrators were more interested in kind of checking these boxes than actually seeing like, how are our children doing? How is your mental health? How are you responding to this pandemic that kind of put your whole school year in jeopardy? And so it kind of makes me wonder, like, is one of the things that are the sacrifices of this pandemic is like, we're not really worried about the children. You know what I'm saying?
Man, that's
So maybe we have a theme for the show, because this goes back to, again, nobody here or probably listening thinks that Schuman Center works. That's not the issue.
Yeah.
Okay. And its problems are well documented. But this goes back to, again, this is a county facility. This is, okay, Richard Fitzgerald. Again, just the ignorance and the arrogance of that man. Here's this decision. You knew you had to count. Okay, what does that look like? Who was consulted on how to close? So you were decertified, and you have a window of time to either appeal, to get right, or to make the case for your plan. But you just no plan. Okay, close. Let the cookie crumbles. This is, again, we should have vetted, and we could. Richard Fitzgerald, again, this is failure of his space again. And let's point to where the leaders have failed. And now all of the kids, all of the people who work at Schuman, mostly Black folks who work at Schuman, who are now out of jobs. Well, what's your plan? I don't know. We weren't consulted on how to make this work. Where do those kids go? We don't know. That's not our problem anymore. This is the ignorance and arrogance of Richard Fitzgerald again. His failure to lead in times of crises in issues that matter to Black folks. And all of his apologists are going to come and say, well. No, this is Fitzgerald's failure again. This too, put that on his resume. Because I hope that guy's not trying to run for any higher office that these Democrats in Allegheny County are ready to rally behind.
Right.
That's my rant for today, by the way.
No, it's right on point.
I'm gonna calm down.
No, it's right on point. Bethany Howland, who's a county councilwoman, issued a statement that was very similar to yours. She said, with the haphazardly announced closure, unexpected layoffs, and disregarded youth, the values of our county administrator have become as clear as ever. Our administration will stop at nothing to save money and sell off its assets, even if it means sending more kids to jail. I'm ashamed of our leadership, their callous decision, and of the inevitable harmful effects on our community. Today, the administration demonstrated a disregard for both the children housed at the Schuman facility and the union employees who work there. Unfortunately, today's announcement increases the likelihood that children will be held at Allegheny County Jail. No child under any circumstances should ever be held at the Allegheny County Jail. She goes on later in this statement to say that that the child population has tripled at Allegheny County Jail in the past 6 months. So I just wanted, this isn't just you saying this is a failure of leadership. This is even, people at the county council level saying, no, this is a failure of leadership, and a failure to not only folks that are now losing their job in the midst of the pandemic, but also a failure to really address, what are we going to do with these children? And if it's just send them to Allegheny County Jail, that's unacceptable.
And think about where we're talking about. Allegheny County Jail.
Yeah.
How often have we had to talk about that being one of the worst jails in the country? You don't need your cow in the Allegheny County Jail, much less a child. So it is not just moving them into an adult situation. It's moving into the documented terrible situation. And these people got lawsuits coming out of their backsides right now. And we're already overpopulated with kids in the system because PPS is shooting them out of their system into jails left and right every time they do anything. So what we're talking about is some systemic hot mess that's being done to our kids. And some of these kids are going to come out so traumatized in this situation, I can't even imagine the damage that's being done right now.
So I was reading from some other justice advocates today who were talking about the other consequence. So without the options, so when you decided to make this closure, without considering the options and the other potential outcomes. So the other one are the kids are sent to other detention facilities far outside of Allegheny County.
From their
far from their parents and their support network. Lawyers who would come to visit, instead of seeing and checking in on the kid, they're doing these visits virtually. And justice advocates who could work with these young people. All of this is now missing, and you're sending them to more rural, more white, spaces as another consequences of Fitzgerald's failure.
Right.
I'm getting some T-shirts to print that. Just a list of Fitzgerald's failures.
No, that you got to get a big T. You got to get a double X.
Yeah, right. You got to get the triple XL, the 2-sided print. That clown.
Yeah, but you make a great point, Dr. Bey, because we were in Schuman Center. You know, One Hood Media has had programming in Schuman Center for the last 3 years. We were going in once a month. We were going for a week every month to do a program where we do media literacy. We had a studio there where students can record their music. We would give them their music. And then the idea was also to work with them. And we've worked with students to, you know, when they come out to come record at our actual spot. And so that was a program that actually Celeste started when she was CEO of One Hood. He was one of her most proud accomplishments, the fact that we were able to get into Schuman Center and we could, you know, directly work with these young people in Pittsburgh. And then now, you know, connect them with resources when they get out, like, you know, and so just like you said, now workers like us, and I know there were many other folks that were going into Schuman and doing great, incredible programming, working with these young people. Now all that gets shut down as well. And when we don't have the ability to kind of connect our students with some of the resources and community organizations that's out here, you know, working with our young people.
Am I frozen or did Cheryl freeze?
I think Cheryl froze slightly. Can you hear us, Dr. Russell? Yeah. There we go. It's just me and you.
We'll need you to freestyle then.
No, well, I think we. Did you have any other comments about Schuman?
No, I just think this is this is something that we have to figure out. Like, one, so often we're just reacting to the failures.
Absolutely.
Again, that's basically what the hell this whole damn program has been, just our reactions to the failures. We really need to start thinking about our agenda,
right?
Of thriving,
right?
What does that look like? Because this is just a mess, man. We keep counting on these same clowns who just consistently sell us short and are not working to support us, and that's just a frustrating thing.
Absolutely. I think like you said, I think that's one of the issues. It's like, okay, what policies and what programs can we create going forward in terms of working with young people? This is something, you know, we've been having, you know, communicating and working with the Abolitionist Law Center on actually right now around, like, you know, the whole juvenile justice stuff. You know, this is work that I was blessed to get into working with Harry Belafonte a number of years ago. And so, like you said, but like, really, that's the point. What's our agenda? And then I think, like, you know, moving forward with the understanding that, you know, as bad as Fitzgerald is, he's not going to be able to run again. So now who are we grooming? Who are we developing to sit in that seat as county executive? And is it somebody that's going to have, you know, our best interests and our children's best interests at heart? I think that's another thing that we have to begin to think about. And I think folks are doing that and are doing that work. You know, we saw it lead to a change. At least we know that, Ed Gainey is the Democratic, he won a Democratic primary. And so I think we have to begin to do that same work when we look at some of these other offices that are making these decisions that are directly affecting us and our children.
Absolutely. And that, there are rooms right now where Arab parents are being, appointed. They are all vying for that position. And often we have not been at these tables. So now we know what it looks like when we get to help choose our own Arab parents and what happened with Ed. This whole thing about this about Schuman is wild to me, because before I came to Pittsburgh, I ran an organization that was the statewide organization around juvenile delinquency prevention. And I had 33 different organizations that I worked with, and we certified the organizations. That was what my job was. We helped to certify and maintain standards. And so long before any of our shelters or agencies got to the point of closing, there was a clear certification period. We knew that there were problems and they were being fixed like ASAP. I just don't know how we got here. that nobody was paying attention to. They didn't do what was necessary to fix this, knowing that people are going to lose their kids to other cities. And that leadership thing right there, that just allowed this thing to just shut down.
Yeah, I mean, and they were, apparently they had been cited several times, and they, according to what the articles and the news that I read was that, they had changed leadership, they had made some changes, but unfortunately, whatever was happening, that these same failures were happening, over and over and over again. And so that's kind of, sad to hear if that was the case. But kind of like you said, I think it goes down to like, what's your priority? And a lot of times, unfortunately, if you look at the jail and you look at Schuman Center, it's this idea that if you hit a detention center or you hit a jail, that you're like expendable. And that we don't necessarily have to think about like, you don't have no rights now. And, if you don't get the proper food or if you don't get the proper attention, it doesn't matter because you shouldn't have committed no crime in the first place. And a lot of times that, these folks in power, I mean, you just had, how many years did, Fitzgerald not even attend the Allegheny County Jail oversight meeting, even though that budget is the biggest budget out of anything that he runs in Allegheny County. He wasn't even coming. He had to be shamed into just showing up at a meeting. But a lot of times it's that idea of like, oh, they're in the jail, even though 70% of the people in jail, maybe even more, have not been charged with the crime. You know what I'm saying? They have not been, they haven't been charged. They haven't been on trial. They've been accused of crimes, and oftentimes they're in jail because they don't have the resources and money to pay bail. And so even though they might not be guilty of those crimes, they have to sit in there because they don't have the resources to pay to get out of jail. And so I think that's some of the thing that I think we're seeing happen. It's this idea of, it's the jail, it's the detention center. These are people that we don't, but for our community, that's us. The majority of the people in both those are our community, our people. We know we're being profiled. We know if you're Black in Pittsburgh, you're going to be arrested 6 times at a higher rate than white people. And so we have to consider that because we know that those are our people and our folks. You know what I'm saying? And that regardless of what they might have been charged with or may have done, that does not mean that we throw their humanity away, and that they shouldn't have rights just because they're in jail.
The throwaway people. And that's the way we look at it. We don't have any kids. We don't have any spare kids, y'all. And some of these things, these incidents, some of the reasons that they're even in there are minor. And now you're talking about putting people's kids in Ohio and West Virginia and everywhere else because we have not been able to monitor our system. So, everybody keep an eye on what's happening on that. Become an advocate. These may not be your children, but they're our children. And so we need to start putting some pressure on what happens with them next. So speaking of kids, our kids are getting COVID, y'all. COVID, the Delta variant is now really starting to hone in on our children. They're getting sicker. Dr. Bey, where are we in the region? We're less than 40% vaccinated in the Black community here. So, from the last stats I looked at, but I know you're much more updated on the stats. What's going on?
And the countywide positivity rate is back over 5.
So can you explain what that means to
and
folks who are
so,
listening?
yes, I can. So what that means, of the folks who are being tested, more than 5% of them now are showing that they do have COVID. And that's the rate that the CDC recommends. Okay, it's time to shut it down.
Wow.
And so that was the point before where the CDC started, using that language to say, all right, it's time to, what the initial shutdowns, the threshold was 5%. And we're there now. And that's countywide. Now, the numbers in the Black community are, they're not clear. They're somewhere between 6.4 and 13%, depending on how it's measured.
Wait a minute. Wow, that's huge.
Depending on how it's measured. But the vaccination rates are very low. And so what this means, I was talking to a pediatrician at the ER at Children's Hospital, and she was saying that she sees, she's seeing more kids with COVID. They're not getting as sick, but they are, as adults were. but they do have some, kids that are being admitted. And her bigger concern is that, they're exposed, they can't be vaccinated, and now they're bringing it home. Yeah. And so the likelihood of more, even if you are vaccinated, breakthrough, that's still a small percentage of breakthroughs that have significant consequences. But it is a number, that is a possibility. And so as we have these conversations and, talking to folks who are not vaccinated and what folks who are about how they made that decision and what those barriers are, there's still a lot of work to do. And, one of the biggest challenges is that folks do not have access to people in the health field who they can talk through their concerns. Mm. And they don't have trusted relationships. And people who have, I was talking to a woman and she was saying that, all right, it's a known, the way that she's calculating it, it's known that if she's vaccinated, she's probably going to be sick for 2 or 3 days. Where if she gets COVID, she may or may not be too sick, or she may not even get it if she's not vaccinated. But in either case, she has a 12-year-old son and she doesn't have a whole lot of support. She doesn't have a big family. And so she cannot afford to be down for 2 or 3 days. And so she's, using that as, her rationality. He's dependent on me to be there every day. And we don't have a whole lot of go outside space. She doesn't have family to help with that support. And so, she had her other vaccination. She's not anti-vax. Uh-huh. She knows that right now, this is not a convenient time for her to be down for 2 or 3 days, considering where she is. She's in a situation where, she was, she came back to Pittsburgh because, she was in Atlanta and was worried about, she was on that bubble. Okay, the eviction moratorium, she lost her job in Atlanta and the eviction moratorium was coming up and she knew she was vulnerable for eviction. So she came back to Pittsburgh where, she could get a more affordable rent. But as she's trying to make ends meet, she can't afford. And so like you hear those kinds of stories and you say, right, this is not just, okay, everybody line up and get a shot. These are people who are making decisions based on their lived experiences and the information that they have. And they're not easy decisions. We're nowhere near close. Less than 40% of the Black population in Allegheny County is vaccinated. And in some communities, it's less than 30%.
Yeah, I read somewhere that was it Bedford County? I'm not sure where that, it was like 16%. And so, this has consequences. And so I was on a chat the other day on Facebook with some younger Black folks that were just kind of going in, and a lot of them were not vaccinated. And I think what was fascinating to me is that, nobody had really talked to a medical doctor about their decision. Nobody. And they all started to quote and put into the chat all of these things from YouTube, all of these, and so, we are still being heavily dependent on kind of word of mouth. And then there was conversations about all this stuff that was being injected and tracking and all of that, where it sounds like, nobody's going to believe that. Trust me, they really are. And it's a real issue.
I think it goes directly to what Dr. Bey, not has said today, but has been saying about what, it was the medical industry that broke the trust. So if the medical industry is not going to put significant resources into rebuilding a trust with our community, into even establishing just what relationship do we have with the medical industry? At One Hood, we have a relationship with the Gateway Medical Society, but they're made up of individual professionals that donate and volunteer their time to help our community, the little time that they have, because there's doctors in the middle of a pandemic. But what resources have the medical community put in? And I'll say that to say, as a healthcare provider reached out to us at One Hood and said, hey, we want to do this community thing, and we want One Hood to be a part of it. And I said, okay, great. What's your budget? And they said, we don't have a budget.
No, wait,
we just want
a major medical. Wait.
A major multi-million, because I looked, multi-million-dollar healthcare provider wanted us to participate in some reach out to the Black, and they had no budget. And so I had to explain to them what labor is. Like, and I had to say, you know, it's simply just like you said, Dr. Russell, you're a multi-million-dollar business, and that you put no, like, so what do you expect to get out of we're just gonna get a bunch of black people and throw them on our website? Like, that was their idea. Get a bunch of black people and just throw them on their website. But that's not real outreach. That's not real connection with folks.
Lazy and cheap.
Exactly. And so so people are trusting individuals that they have a connection to. You know what I'm saying? Right. These are people that they have a connection to. They're not doctors, obviously, you know, and there was it's a rapper named Lupe who went on this whole rant. I thought it was fascinating because he was talking about, like, everybody's not qualified to do research. He was like, when you just start having people say do research, he was like, I wasn't a good student. I don't like doing research is like something that is like it's a skill. And so he was just talking about that in terms of people, but what it is people are looking and saying, okay, here's grandma or here's uncle so-and-so, here's this person in the community. I trust them. Why? I see them all the time.
Right.
I see them. They're there. They've helped me in all of these situations, but we haven't seen UPMC. We haven't seen Highmark. We haven't seen them in our community. And if they're not willing to spend to actually build a real relationship with folks, then we're left now kind of to our own devices. I think that's what you're seeing is happening. But I did have a question for you, Dr. Bey, specifically is now that the FDA came out and approved Pfizer, because I saw a report that basically where they asked people and like what could happen that would encourage you to get the vaccine. FDA approval was high up. It was the highest on the list. Second highest was if they basically said you had to be vaccinated to get on a plane. You know, so I know that, you know, some of these restrictions that have came out has actually led to people getting vaccinated because folks are looking and saying, if I can't go inside of a restaurant, I was just in Los Angeles. They were saying by October 1st, I believe, that they were going to have some of these restrictions where you couldn't go into different places unless you could show vaccine. You know, they just had a concert over at Stage AE and you had to show proof of vaccination in order to get into the concerts. But do you believe that the FDA approval of Pfizer, and you know, they were saying that Moderna is going to be approved, it was just a paperwork thing. Like, is this going to maybe open it up or encourage people to get vaccinated that maybe have not?
I think it's going to eliminate one more hurdle barrier. Right. I don't think it means, okay, starting tomorrow, everybody's lined up. That's what we were waiting for, these folks to sign off on that. Right. One of the things that it's going to do, you know, there were already employers that were mandating that you had to be vaccinated. Right. And they've been hit with lawsuits. Now, I didn't know that. What they were saying was, that's fine. We knew the lawsuits were coming, but by the time it gets to the court, it's going to be approved and it's going to be a moot point anyway. But in the same way that, you know, the MMR vaccines, the polio vaccines, and other vaccines are mandated, this is, you know, that legal requirement has been removed. Now that it's approved, you know, it can be required. Now, you still have the freedom to choose not to get the vaccine. Okay, but I can use that as a way to discriminate against you and not hire you or not allow you to attend my function or my university. Yeah. And so that's, you know, that's a reality now. And so we're going to see some of that.
It's going to jam us up even worse, though, if we don't, you know, if we stay in that 35 to 40%. And now all of a sudden there's all these mandates based on law. And then, you know, are we going to get up to 55%? Or are we just going to find ourselves not being able to get jobs and some other stuff? I mean, it'll be really interesting to see.
I'm laughing at the comment in the chat because this is already happening. There are vaccine police. Where's your card? Where's your card? And, you know, this is one more thing that, you know, we know only 35% of you Black folks are vaccinated. Show me your card.
That's the carrot. So speaking of that, Dr. Bey and Dr. Russell, I mean, you know, I guess the lieutenant governor of Texas kind of came out and basically said that the reason that Texas was falling short was because of black people. He was like, most of the people that aren't getting vaccines are black people. They're Democrats. And so is that going to be one of these talking points moving forward?
Anything that comes out of that asshole's mouth, you know what? Yeah, I can't even tell. That clown.
Keeping in mind, it's only 16% of the people infected in Texas are black.
Let's not even talk about Texas, because that idiot. So this is the same clown.
You started in Jasiri.
What was it? Yeah, I was. He was the same one. It was black people's fault. Remember during the election, he was the one. Yeah,
right. Yeah.
To hell with him.
Yes.
But is this? Yeah, this is one more. And this goes to Woogie's point. One more thing that white folks got to say, okay, here's black folks' fault again. This is black folks. When I'll be goddamn, I said it again. This is Trump's pandemic. Millions of people have died because of that clown, his inability to lead, to support the World Health Organization, to support the CDC early. The consequences of this, all of these, Trump killed millions of people.
Right, he did. And
history is going to record this. This is his pandemic. And that clown from Texas, that lieutenant governor, that's another one of those idiots with his head up Trump's behind.
And it's what's interesting is Trump did some type of rally where he talked about getting vaccinated and they booed. Mm-hmm. And he talked about he took the vaccine and the crowd booed. And so just like you said, this is you and kind of the GOP kind of pandering to this group that don't want to be masked, don't want to take the vaccine. You see, the governor of South Dakota just came out and talked about how she was going to do everything in her power not to allow people to mandate vaccines, even though in the past 2 weeks, they have the highest percentage of new COVID cases. I think it was like 300% rise.
Damn it, I'm going to help you die.
And South Dakota.
That the rallying cry? What the hell?
I mean, I think, and it's weird to see this. To me, it's weird to see health become politicized. I would have never thought that wearing a mask would become politicized. And it's like, if you got a mask on, I was telling people, I went to I was in Los Angeles. A friend of mine was like, hey, let's go to this spot. And we went to the spot, and then it just got more crowded and more crowded. It was a point where I said, I was laughing. I said, this is a 2019 crowd. This ain't supposed to be happening in 2021. So we had to leave. I was like, all of us began to get uncomfortable. And we were like, hey, we got to leave. It's too many people in here. Nobody's wearing masks. People was drinking. And then when we walked out, it was about 200 more people waiting to get inside this place. And I was shocked. I was like, hey, yo. And, then you start to think, like you had, Dr. Russell, we ain't never getting up out of here. You start to think like, yo, people are wild. And so I think people have looked at it like, almost like it's the cold. If I get it, I get it. You had a famous football player. He's a quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, Kirk Cousins, where he kind of said, well, if I get it and die, that's God's will. And I think people are kind of operating that mentality instead of saying, like, I can actually take precautions that can actually extend my life. So it is fascinating to watch. But I agree with Dr. Bey. This was Trump giving these people a platform. Yeah. Because he don't care nothing about, all he wanted to do was get reelected. He did not care. He don't care how many people die right now. He just wants to get elected. He wants to put pressure on Joe Biden. He does not care. He don't care about no Afghanistan people. He does not care.
No. And it's so interesting to how different the reasoning is between black and white folks about why they don't get it. Theirs is completely around politics or what their political leaders, and ours is about not trusting medical systems, period, because of our 100%. But all of them are in the same risk. Not
trusting and the history of no relationship. And he said, our folks, we ain't used to having insurance and we're not used to doing this. And so that's why we don't have those relations, because we're in these shitty jobs.
Right.
And
so you asking your aunt and everybody else in the community about what they know.
Yeah,
because
I
you
mean,
don't have the relationships.
I have a decent job. I don't have a doctor. You know, I don't have like a doctor. I like, you know, if something happened, I go to UPMC and it's like whatever doctor you give me. But like, and I didn't know until I started to Ask a Black Doctor that I had a choice in what doctor I had, and I could build this relationship with this particular doctor. I didn't even know this. You know, I'm one of them, you know, unfortunately, I'm one of them black, you know, I tell people I come from the suck it up generation. You just suck it, walk it off, suck it up. And so, like you said, like
Dr. Robitussin, it'll be all right.
Yeah, rub some Robitussin on it. Drink some ginger ale, you'll be good. So, but I don't have, and so I look at, you know, just like Dr. Bey said, how many people have a family doctor? Like, well, where you have a relationship with this person, you know them, they know you, they know your body, you can call them. That's rare in our community. And so now when something comes down, we don't like, who do we call? Who do we talk to? You know, who can we say, hey, you know, this is somebody that I trust. And I just think it goes directly back to what Dr. Bey said. And we still, to this point, you know, have not had any real plan from, somebody put out, check out Black Equity Pittsburgh. I know that you've been working on that, Dr. Bey, along with several folks. And I'm just wondering what level of investment, I mean, we already have a group. We have trusted folks like yourself and the Black Equity folks. I would think that these folks should be funding, you know, what you all are doing and your ideas and helping to develop those plans that we need to actually get Black folk vaccinated, you know?
And that's a big part of what Black Equity is one of the things that we're working on. You know, one, in response to a pandemic, again, we're forced to react. This is racism's greatest, white supremacy's greatest power, is to force you into reacting constantly. Right. But in that, you know, we still have to. It's about building this new narrative, standards of what's expected, what can we do? And then you said, you know, if you're using the ER or the Medicare or MedExpress as your primary care physician, you know, no, that you don't have to have a health problem. I need to make sure that's what I want to do. Now, if I'm talking to my doctor regularly, hey, doc, here's how I'm feeling. Here's what I'm thinking. And let me talk you through that. That does not mean that there's a health issue, but at least when something comes up, he knows you well enough. You take his advice well enough. Let's start having those conversations. Now, that's a privilege to have that relationship. But when you have any kind of health issue, you need to start thinking about what that's like. I mean, and when I go to my doctor, how are you sleeping? You know, how's your sex life? Are you pissing okay? You know, all of these kinds of things. It's like, what are you asking me about that for? And it's like, yeah, I'm trying to get a sense of how you're doing. What's going on? Those are, you know, that's a part of this big relationship building. But in order to do that, then, okay, there's a vaccine. Let me talk through, here's what I'm worried about. Okay, well, I get that. Rather than, no, that doesn't make sense. Just take the vaccine. And so that's a part of what we don't have, because yeah, there's a whole lot of reasons not to trust these folks and these systems.
So speaking of not trusting folks, y'all trust Tony Moreno?
Hell to the no. I mean, I don't know if I can't be biased, but I mean,
wait.
I'm sorry, I could have been more subtle in my
What's the question? Do I trust him to do what? I trust him to do, yeah.
What he's doing right now.
I trust him to be who he is. I do.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm being obnoxious in how I introduced this, but you know, we said we had a lot of topics to talk about today, and one of them that has been.
You don't need to know Wookie. You don't need to know who that is. Somebody don't even Google him.
So this dude ran, of course, as a Democratic candidate for mayor. There was a whole lot of questions about his background. Former police officer doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, but we like how you. Yeah. Then some little things start popping up in his background. Some of the organizations that he supported that were far right, and what he was like, hey, it's a misunderstanding. I'm nice to everybody. And then he lost and decided to run as a Republican. And my goodness, did the sheet go on? This dude is now being affiliated with all kind of far right extremists, and unapologetically, all his tweets and combos about what a great guy Trump is, all this stuff is just pouring out. So, my thought is how big a threat is he to Gainey? Since 32 or 37, the Democrats won. In this current climate, what's the threat to Gainey at this point to have this dude on the right?
I think that's something that we have to think about as particularly as Black people that are already struggling in America's most livable city, that are already facing, all of these different things that we face. Even, we supposedly have a progressive Democratic mayor right now, you know what I'm saying? And it has not benefited a majority of us as Black people in Pittsburgh. And so now imagine somebody that has this kind of far right thinking, where Pittsburgh has one of the highest rates of white supremacist activity in the country, according to the FBI. You're not only communicating with these folks and people like Wendy Bell, who's very clear as to where she stands, particularly when it comes to issues around race. But you're like giving these folks a platform, and then you're actually trying to make it seem like that they're not racist or white supremacists in their rhetoric. You're actually trying to give these folks a pass. And so I think we should be mindful of that. And we shouldn't have this mentality of, Danny got the Democratic nomination, he's good. No, we should be planning to get together and vote in November, because it's not just Gainey on the ballot. We also have 3 Black women that are running for judge, as well as, more. I think we have 5 progressive judges as well. And so there's a lot of stuff that we have to, and we're at One Hood Power, we're going to start, we just put out, we have a, we have a get together on our launch September 5th at Highland Park. We're encouraging everybody to come through. And we're going to start our series of forums around these races starting September 13th with the judicial forum. And so we just got to start paying attention. I know like summer's closing out, like we're getting back into school, but we should begin to think about, the election coming up. We should begin to educate ourselves if we don't know about that, you know what I'm saying? And we should be planning to get as many people as we can to vote in November, so we don't have, somebody who obviously is taking this stance, when it comes to, kicking it with white supremacists and I don't know. I've never talked to the guy, so I can't say what his stance is on, issues that are directly impacting me and my community.
Right.
When your question was, do you trust him? He came, we had a mayoral forum, we had a candidates forum in Beltsuver before the primary, 2 or 3 days before. And after he spoke, I said, I talked to him. Peduto did not participate in the forum. And after Moreno spoke, I was the facilitator for the forum. I said, man, I appreciate you showing up, and you don't come off as an asshole cop. And
and knowing you said exactly that.
I said that was exactly what I said. He laughed and said, "That's because I'm not from Pittsburgh." And does that mean, okay, well, I know how to talk the talk, I'm a little smoother than that, or there's a problem with the Pittsburgh play? I didn't go any further than that. We both laughed and parted ways after he said that. But I'm looking at so yesterday, Peduto wrote a letter for Next Pittsburgh, and it was the work that he still has to get done before he's leaving office. Now, Peduto is the first mayor of the city of Pittsburgh, the first incumbent to ever lose. And so we haven't had this period of this lame duck period. Right. And so he's outlining, some of his things with PWSA and the stormwater. And again, we had that issue with the thing in Homewood, the busted sewer line in Homewood with the sinkhole. And PWSA and Will Pickering, shout out to him, the executive director at PWSA, he has committed to addressing that for the folks on that block. I don't remember what block it was in Homewood, but those 7 households that were disconnected, it's a significant investment, and he got his board to approve making those repairs for those families. So shout out to them. But, Peduto outlined the work that still needs to be done in the remaining months of his thing. And so he outlined, the work that still needs to be done in the remaining months of his thing. And so he outlined, the work that still needs to be done in the remaining months of his thing. And so he outlined, the work that still needs to be done in the remaining months of his thing. But the other thing that I see here, I trust Ed to be Ed Gainey. Ed is a solid Democrat. Ed is not he's not known, he has some progressive ideas, but he's not known as being a progressive Democrat. Right. He's not on that end. He's a solid, union guy, supporting the issues that Democrats typically support. But Ed does show up. Ed does listen to folks. We have an opportunity to influence Ed's agenda. And I think that we should stay engaged and having those conversations, because there's a lot of things, where we've been neglected. But the other side of that, not the other side, also pay attention to what's happening in city council.
Yeah.
In this lame duck period, city council sees this as an opportunity to seize power.
Right.
And you see that this heavy-handedness with this Recovery Act money. Oh, we're going to go ahead and commit it all. We know that there's a new mayor coming in, and let's shut it down and make these commitments. And again, I think we've seen this happen in Duquesne when they elected a black mayor. We've seen it happen.
That was wild.
And like basically city council said, hey, we don't trust this black person to run this. And you see this like, okay, let's amass our power. This is still Pittsburgh again. This is why Tony Moreno's still out there. Where are the checks and balances? Who are these folks in city? It's more the same thing. And I've been advocating for this recently. We really need to think about, as a city, how do we professionalize city council? That means let's give it a professional salary. For the work that's asked of these folks, they're not paid, which is why you see so much outside. These folks still hold their other jobs. Right. So you have folks in city council who are roofers and realtors and cosmetologists. Yeah, we need some people who understand how to manage a budget, how to do policy work. These people are learning on the job. We're not recruiting and attracting the best people for city council, and we're asking a whole lot of them.
Absolutely.
And I think that we need to have that conversation. Let's think about what a professional city council looks like, and not just the next preacher that wants to get some people excited, gets enough folks to vote for him. Who knows how to do this shit and understands the challenges and can listen to people and can understand goals and priorities rather than coming in with the support of a developer to push an agenda. Yeah. So I think Pittsburgh's in trouble right now. We're at this pivot point. We need to stay active. We need to stay vocal.
So, I mean, we were talking about the whole lame duck issue. We've got folks who are now peeling off, who have worked for the city, who are now taking other jobs, and everybody's trying to. And I mean, we don't blame them. They got families to support and careers too. But I mean, what happens in these vacuums, and who gets set up while we don't have any clue what's happening, and how permanent will some of these changes be? When the new mayor takes over. This is a kind of creepy time right now, as people are repositioning themselves. But that's county council, man. That council.
Yeah. We gotta kind of like what Dr. Bey said. I mean, we got to be paying attention to what's happening. We got to be a part of these conversations as they're talking about these millions of dollars. And we have to let them know, that we're. We want our voices heard as communities as well. And it seems like it's been this thing of like communities saying we want our voices heard, and kind of city council and the mayor saying, oh, we kind of know what's best for you. And we want to end that cycle, but we got to do it in a way. And it's really, unfortunately, a lot of times the only language a politician understands is, we can amass enough voters to get you up out of there. And so, if it comes to that, I mean, that's what we have to begin to do. And I think that's what, like I said, these emerging Black-led political groups are building power to do, to say like, nah, we're getting ready. And we're getting folks ready. And we want to kind of build that power. If you're not going to listen to us when we say, we want our voices heard. And so we do have to be vigilant when it comes to a lot of those issues.
Yeah, because their attitude now is we'll do it and have community meetings about it later, and that's just not how this should work. Guys, Absolutely. We are at 3:00. Any kind of closing thoughts or takeaways from, we hit a lot of topics today. We had a lot of things that we needed to cover.
It's good to catch up with y'all.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we haven't done this in a minute.
Yeah, we've been off for a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think I know, you know, we like I said, at One Hood, we have our This Week in White Supremacy tomorrow, on Tilt Thursday, at 12 o'clock. We're also you know, participating in with a group of national organizations in a rally in Washington, D.C. on Saturday, called Making Good Trouble, you know, in the spirit of John Lewis. This is organizations like Until Freedom, Black Voters Matter Fund, you know, Woke Vote, you know, some other organizations that are kind of coming together to talk about, you know, some of these national issues of the filibuster, of, you know, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, you know, the George Floyd Policing Act, all of these acts. It seems like all of the acts that are in relation to Black people have not moved an inch politically. And so folks are coming together to put pressure on this administration. So if you are interested in that, interested in possibly going to DC this weekend, you know, you could, you know, hit me directly, or you can hit us at info@onehood.org. And then, like I had mentioned, on September 5th, we're doing our launch, our basically, you know, we're back at it for One Hood Power. That's a Sunday. You know we got Monday off. So if you ain't doing nothing Sunday the 5th and you want to come hang with us, do that. We're doing Patonka Talk, the Patonka Talk Festival. That's September 3rd, along with a bunch of, you know, socially conscious hip hop artists and performers. Will be performing, and that usually, this is the first Patonka Talk that usually draws a lot of people. But of course, we want you, wherever you come out, mask up, practice social distancing, be mindful of the time that we are in. And so, yeah, those are the things that I'm thinking. We got some more stuff coming down, but we'll inform y'all when we got all that set up.
All right.
See, and that's why that's why the brothers' organization is growing so rapidly. They're doing all this good stuff. And brother, keep at it.
Thank you.
I on the other hand, I'm horrible at remembering to tee up what's going on for our organization. But I don't have the flyer ready or the link to put into the chat. But we have coming up our community engagement team, Dr. Neil Brown, he's been on here.
Absolutely.
Quadir Bey and Jaquia Mills. They're out, you know, doing some community engagement. They were in McKees Rocks and went into the library, talking to a librarian there. And out of that conversation, this Saturday, what they want to do is, it's a Black Book Expo. It's a book expo mostly for independent authors. You know, as publishing is becoming democratized too, a lot of folks are doing their own publishing. But what the librarian wanted to help us see, you know, to get to that next level, you need to get your books in library systems. And so, you know, not only is that okay, well, that's at least a dozen sales to the Carnegie libraries, you know, that's in your system. People can search for you, and that's how you can help. So it's an expo workshop this Saturday at the McKees Rocks Library. It's I think it's a 10 to 5 event, or I don't know if the setup's at 10. Get out there afternoon, you'll be cool. But get out, and, you know, if you're interested in supporting Black authors, or if you're interested in just, you know, learning more about how you can get your book published and get it to the next level, this is a workshop for that. Look at somebody threw it in the chat. Go ahead, Naomi.
Okay, right. Boom. And then I saw the show. I saw a show that you all were doing with the younger. I saw it was Quadir. It was a couple other. Yeah,
they're doing that.
Okay.
So that's right. So our young folk, Black Futures, this is
yes,
a network and group of young Black folks. They're on here online every Friday, Black Future Fridays, and the conversation that I challenge them to have is, let's just get these folks together and talk about and imagine and dare to dream about what's that aspirational vision for Black folks, not the reaction to white supremacy, not the reaction to what's going on in Pittsburgh. How do we think, you know, what's the future that you want for your children and your grandchildren? What do you want to be able to write back and talk about? And so this is a challenge to them. I'm pretty much hands off because, you know, I'll mess it up. But my young folks, I'm real proud of those young folks. Naomi's one of them. But there's a team of about 9 of them, and it's a growing network. And so they're on live every Friday. Awesome. I don't know, is it every Friday, Naomi? But anyway, check that out.
So the one last thing I want to mention that Dr. Bey and I both do, we do work for Independent Sector, which is a national organization that has its memberships in nonprofits, individual people, work for nonprofits, foundations. And he and I host what's called an upswell exchange of folks around the nation talking about some of the challenges that are happening with in nonprofits. And it's a time that people are really engaging from, if you're in Portland, talking to somebody in Detroit about what's going on. And so, we have these topics every other month. I think our next exchange is September 30th from 2 to 4. We'll put some more information about it. But it has been a really, really cool place to have some national conversations on what's impacting our communities. So we'll put some things out to make sure everybody can join that and maybe find some resources, both in people and other things, because we're very much a part of a national conversation as well.
And the important part of that program, the way we designed that, the intention is for you to connect with folks in other cities who are doing similar work to you, so that you can sort of, hey, let's learn, let's do these learning exchanges. What are you doing? What are your challenges? How did you work that out? And I think, it's the conversations, the relationships that folks have and that are building outside of the actual on-air space has been powerful. Just the folks that you're building your national network of people who do the kind of work that you do. Think about how valuable that would be to you. So
we talk money, we talk all kind of stuff.
We'll have the promo link next time we're on the air in 2 weeks.
All right, fantastic. All right, we are over. But this has been wonderful. Folks, please feel free to shoot this video around with some really important information. There's a lot of real serious stuff going on right now that we need you to think about, where you are as advocates. And mostly, I think for me, what came out of this today is we need to support our kids. We need to safeguard our teens and the children right now. They are we're in trouble in the city in terms of leadership around supporting what's going on with our kids. And so they need us, and they need our voices and our actions. So get involved, y'all. All right, we're out. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks for joining us.
Peace.
Bye.
Peace.
Welcome to America's most livable city. Please ignore the invisibles with me. See, Pittsburgh rebuilt its economy, but we still lead the nation in black poverty. Welcome to America's most livable city. Just ignore the invisibles with me and state your business, cause here, the place you live in depends on your race and privilege.